right, how's everyone doing? Um, Hello, Caitlin. There's gonna be a little bit of delay between what you see on screen versus what's in the chat, so please bear with us. It's only about 5 seconds, I believe, more or less, depending on what platform you're on. Luke, how are you doing? Sorry, I wasn't sure. I was showing 0 people watching, so I wasn't sure what the holdup was. Whether it was problems with the service or anything like that. So I was checking on that. So I hope everyone's doing all right and having a good morning and everything like that. I see there are 13 of you now, maybe more. It takes a while to update. Um, I'm going to check my replies on my announcement real quick, so please bear with us. Okay. James, did you get in okay? Hmm. Uh, Sly, if you. Awesome, thanks, James. Sly, if you're on, maybe try refreshing. How's it going? I'm not sure we're going to keep using this format, but for now, I think this is what we'll do. Um, anyway. I still show 13 viewers. That means we're missing about half the class, unfortunately. Um, One thing that we do need to do as part of this is I do need to take roll, so I can see some of your names in your usernames. But if you have a username that you've already been using on Twitch, for instance, if you could put your actual name in the chat so I can count you as present, that would be great. Um, and this will serve as counting you for attendance during the class. I don't want to make sure I don't want to miss anyone, basically. Okay. Yeah, this class is Monday and Wednesday, and we have from 11 to about 12:45 ish. Um, and the other class that you'll have with Mrs. Nisley is on Tuesday and Thursday, and I believe she's using Teams for that. Um, so understand that there is a lot of internet traffic today, as basically every school in the nation goes online. Um, so I hope everyone's able to connect just fine and see the video and so on. Okay. All right, we're up to 19. That's good. Someone asked about the textbook that we're using. I'm actually just using the same book that Mrs. Nisley is using for her class. Um, we'll have some different worksheets and some different things that we do, but a lot of this is really just to help y'all out in the main class. So this support course is, you know, if there's like a particular topic that we want to focus on one day, and something to help us better prepare for your regular course, like if there's a particular skill set that we need to review, like factoring or working with fractions and things like that, that's the kind of thing that we'll use this course for. We may occasionally have a quiz, and I'll make sure I announce when that's going to be. I don't want to scare anyone. Um, and Otherwise, I think that'll be the extent to what we do in this course. So a lot of it, um, it's going to be based on what you all need, or what you all would like to do. And beyond that, oh, as far as the Pearson ID number, you can use the one that you'll get from Mrs. Knisley tomorrow. The book is identical, so whatever book you have for 1324 also applies to this course for 0424. All right, Lewis. Take care. So before we get going too far, I'm Joseph Severino, and I've been working at Bentley College since 2002. Um, so I've actually been here for a while. Um, and I've taught the main math course several times over the years. But was this 12th edition? Yes, 12th edition. Sorry, Luke. Um, but This is my first time teaching this particular support course, so please bear with me. I think what we do in the support course will be, like I said, pretty dependent on everyone's needs as far as being prepared and being ready for the main course. That's the entire goal of a support course, is that we can support you in having the skills that you need to be able to succeed in the other half of the class that you're taking. Um, and so whether that's by occasionally having like a quiz over just like essential skills, or assigning a few problems to make sure everyone's in a good place, or doing worksheets. I mean that's or just having a separate lecture that I do to help you all out preparing for the main course. I mean that's the kind of the spectrum of what we can expect to do during this class period. So one thing I want you all to do, if there's any particular topics, or if you have a specific problem that you would like to talk about, or would like me to talk about, we can certainly spend some time on the class going over those things. And there's really a variety of things that we can do to prepare. We can work on, calculator skills, things like that, because that'll certainly be necessary in certain sections of the Math 1324 class. So again, there's a variety of things that we can do. I want to go ahead and look at, not that, look at our course in Canvas. I don't have a lot up there right now. You may see that Mrs. Knisley has a ton of stuff because she's taught that class before online, and she's very well prepared. We're a little more open-ended as far as what we do. And part of it is dictated by what everyone specifically feels like they need help on, or if we identify a need as the class goes on, we can work on that specifically. Um, but inside Canvas here, if you go to the File section, I have a number of documents here. I'm still talking to the camera even though I turned off the camera. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Hopefully that's better. So if we look in the File section, first thing I want to point out is this COVID statement. I don't think it really affects us, but they've asked us to include it with everything. And that is that Midland College continues to monitor reports from the Texas Department of Health Services. We track trends in the community. We will follow guidance and orders from federal, state, and or local levels to assist in the prevention of the spread of the virus. It may include, but not limited to, executive orders, local orders, and public health orders. So we'll utilize alternative instructional delivery methods and use restricted operations if necessary. It doesn't really affect us because we're already online, although this is an IVC class, which means we will meet twice a week, Monday and Wednesday, and we should be able to, and so we have a scheduled meeting. That's part of what IVC is, unlike a web class where there's really no formal meeting times necessarily. So you will be expected to attend these lectures online, and again, as I said, I want to make sure I get your name in the chat if it's not part of your username already, so I can record attendance, and I'll take care of that at the end of the class. So anyway, let's see. So Jarek, I will assess. I'll answer your question in a moment, and feel free to type it in again if I've overlooked it. I want to get through the syllabus first, and we'll move on to the ebook and things like that from there. All right. So first of all, my addendum to the syllabus. This is my part specifically. Check 1 second. Okay. Good. So for this class, you have my contact info, Joseph Severino. My phone number there is to my office at the college. Now, I'm not actually in my office, but if you call that number, you can leave a message, and that message will be sent to my mailbox, my email box, and I can answer it there, or you can just email me or send me a message through Canvas if you want to contact me. Both of those are acceptable. Probably those are easier than calling and leaving a voicemail, but I just want you to know that the option is available. My office hours are listed here. It's on Monday and Wednesday prior to class, and then I have an assortment of hours on Tuesday and Thursday, and then Friday from 10 to noon. There are no classes on Friday per se, so we all have a couple of hours on Friday. Just any of these times, if there's something else, if there's some other time that works better for you, and I happen to be free, let me know, and we can arrange to conference at the time. And if there's like problems that you run into, questions from the textbook or anything that you want me to go over in a little more detail, certainly I can create a video showing that problem worked out. That way you can see it in more detail, and hopefully we'll get through it a little bit more easily that way. So as far as assignments go, as I mentioned, this is just reiterated here. We may spend time working on worksheets, answering questions from homework, and presenting essential topics that would be necessary and useful in the 1324 course. And we may also spend time reviewing material for your test in the 1324 course. And occasional announced quizzes. So, as far as attendance, as I mentioned, and I see a lot of you are still are doing this, putting your typing your name into the chat. That way, I can go back and record you as present and mark you as attended. So, as far as the grading goes, you can see the percentages here. Homework is 25%, quizzes 25%, participation, which is essentially attendance and interaction, but really it'll just be attendance, I think, 10%. But I do hope if you do have questions, we can interact as necessary. And then whatever grades you get in your exams for the Math 1324 course, that also counts towards your grade in this class. So that means if you do well in the main course, it also means you've done well in this course. So it's but ideally there should be a connection there, I feel. So it'll be part of the grade regardless. Now, the other file that we have in files right now, this is a kind of our general. I don't know what that's doing there. Anyway, it's kind of our general syllabus for all Math 0424 classes. It's kind of the basics. Now, when it says 3-ring binder, paper and pencil, that'd be nice. It's hard to require that because it's not like you can turn that into me. But I think it'll be handy, like if you do if you write out a lot of your homework on paper, just to keep track of everything. I know a lot of the homework is actually online for this course, so that may not be entirely necessary, even though right now we say it's required. This syllabus is more for when this class was supposed to be an in-classroom class. Functional computer with internet access, certainly we have that, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to me right now. And finally, a scientific calculator. You definitely will need a scientific calculator for various parts of the course because of the types of functions that we'll use, the applications that we use for business math specifically, will require a scientific calculator to work out. Anyway. And so it goes through and it talk about some of the different things that we'll cover. We don't necessarily have to do every single one of these, but these are the different review sections we could potentially cover. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I don't know which book these come out of, so that's a bigger question for me to address, but yeah. Anyway, so look through that and read that over and let me know if you have any questions on that. Now, this is your Mrs. Knisley's course that you'll be attending on Tuesdays and Thursdays that I've opened. Canvas has been real slow this morning, you probably noticed, but a lot of people are trying to use it right now. Anyway, so she hasn't set up some of this stuff yet, but if you let's see if we get into Pearson. Hang on 1 second. Oops. There we go. Sorry about that. We'll get out of the way a bit. All right. So we have our link for Pearson, and this is something that Mrs. Knisley should have linked for you there. But if we sign in, anyway. And you go into my courses. No. I'm not on the teacher side of things, so it may look a little bit different for all of you. At some point, I'm going to fix that. Sorry about that. At some point, I don't know if I clicked on the wrong thing. I'm sorry. I mean, it looks correct. Anyway, we have your e-text down here. So some of you were asking about the textbook, so you'll click on the e-text, and that should open up your textbook. And if there's a certain page that we need, we just enter it here at the top, and we'll go into that page there. Factoring now. Actually, and I believe that we're actually starting in Chapter 8. We've reordered things a little bit in the 1324 course to make it flow a little bit better. Is probably the best explanation. But you're starting in Chapter 8 from MC Portal. I think this is all embedded inside the MC Portal. That's correct. I'm not as familiar with it, though, so that is something that Mrs. Knisley will surely tell you tomorrow. I actually just went to my math lab and logged in and did it there. I think, though, we actually have it integrated with Canvas so that you don't have to do that. But I'm not positive, unfortunately. So, anyway, but the ebook is there for those of you that were asking about it. So and so it's already linked to your business math course, and so you should be able to get to it from there. Again, that's something that Mrs. Knisley will help you with when y'all have class tomorrow specifically. But yeah, I wouldn't panic, mainly. Yeah, so that's her course there. And I don't want to go into anything looking for stuff because she knows where everything is. So. All right. Yeah, those are her assignments already. That's in there. So after class, if you want to go into Canvas and kind of look at what she has for you, when you look at the particular day that we're on, because she has it ordered by day, it'll show you kind of the plan for everything. So yeah, the ebook is what you need the access code from the bookstore for. I have a hardcover copy of the book that was provided to me by the college or the publisher. Yeah, I don't remember which one it came from, but But yeah, you don't have to buy a physical copy of the book if you don't want to. You can actually just use that code that you were provided, or that you bought, not provided. You can use the code that you bought and go from there. Yeah, it's part of Pearson, but once you apply the code, I think it'll be integrated into Canvas. I'm sorry, I'm not more helpful on this. Okay. Nope. There we go. So, I'm curious how everyone is accessing this. Are most of you using a laptop or phone? What kind of device are you all using to uh, access your classes with? Laptop, phone, yeah. Anyone use a tablet? Or some of you may have a desktop, yeah. How's the experience on the phone? Are you able to follow along okay? 6-year-old gaming PC, perfectly valid. Yeah, most of you look like you're using laptops, but phones. Hopefully, the experience on the phone is okay. I know it can be a little difficult, but we understand that not everyone has access to everything. So yeah, good deal. Good deal. Have y'all taken a lot of online classes? Um, have you had positive experiences online? Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the professor. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have a lot of experience teaching online beyond the emergency shift online that we had in the spring. Yeah. So we're all getting through this together. It sounds like, or at least some of us. I hope to make it as positive an experience as possible. Um, but let me know if there's things that you feel are lacking in the presentation. I know I'm not going to be as organized as Mrs. Knisley, but I do hope to respond well to everyone and make sure everyone has what they need. For this class, no, we would not switch to in person. Um, I guess if we had a vaccine, but that probably wouldn't be till late or middle next year. No school in 11 years. Well, welcome back, and it's kind of a crazy time to come back, but we appreciate that y'all are here. So, yeah, the main point of this class is to assist you with the other portion of the class, which is the 1324 course that you'll have Tuesday and Thursday. So yeah, everyone should be enrolled in both courses. Yeah. Well, I saw earlier that Zoom was having a lot of trouble, like partial outages because of the um, demand for its service today, I'm glad I'm not using Zoom for delivery of this course. Teams would probably be better, and at some point I might move us to Teams, but for now, I think we'll switch. It'll stay for this format and see how we may, if there's something else that Teams offer that we don't have here. Yeah, so most of you don't have a lot of experience in online classes. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully we'll get through this together. Um, yeah, some of you mentioned college algebra. What we do in this course is actually pretty similar to college algebra, so I don't think I'm making you feel any better necessarily, but what we do in this course is specifically tailored more towards people that plan to go into business or social sciences. So the idea is that at least the problems will be more relevant to your field, so you have an idea of how specifically this might apply to you as you continue on your degree plan. Yeah, yeah. So some of you are coming back from the oil field with things going crazy there, and that tends to happen. We see a spike in actually we're certainly down students because of the pandemic, but yeah, we certainly get a boost from people that were previously working in the oil field that are coming back for more uh, educational training. I think most of you are planning to major in business. Is that correct? Anyone that's not business? I don't know what else, what other majors take this course. Yeah, and even if you end up not doing business, a course like this helps you understand some of the different things that you need for everyday life a little bit better, like for personal finance type stuff. Because when we go in and we work on like how compound interest works and like the present value of a mortgage, or if you save this much money for 50 years in an account that earns this percent interest, then how much money will it have at the end of that period? If we're saving for retirement or saving up for something that we want to buy. All these things are useful life skills, but important in business as well, in particular. So, some of the stuff we do work with is purely algebra, but a lot of it is also being applied to these business concepts. So, hopefully, there's more of a connection there, and that makes us feel a little bit better about what we're trying to learn, and then we can connect to it a little bit better. Yeah, yeah. Okay. My degree is actually I have a bachelor's of arts in mathematics, but I also have a master of science in mathematics. My master's thesis is actually in financial mathematics applications, although really it's more of a numerical analysis, statistics kind of thing that I end up doing. But certainly the work that I did is applied to financial mathematics. So I do have some experience in that point of view, and certainly I've taught this class quite a bit over the years. Um, and so I think for a lot of us, that may be the most interesting chapter, is working with a lot of these different financial equations that we use in business. And so maybe that'll help us connect a little bit more than you might feel from like a college algebra course where it's a little bit harder to connect to material because we're still learning the general math skills. So that's one of the advantages of this 1324 course and our support courses, that we can go a little bit further into how some things are useful. Now, there's other things that we're required to cover by the state that you may not ultimately find useful in a business degree, but it's just part of the course requirements that the state mandates that we use. But I mean, we'll deal with it as best we can, of course. All right. Does anyone else have any questions at the moment, or are we able to move forward? And again, the delay is give or take about 5 seconds, but please bear with me as I ask questions and look for responses. Okay. Now, awesome. So, for teaching, depending on what we're doing, I may have a worksheet that we look at on my screen. I have the textbook here. I have a clipboard with blank paper on it for writing notes or working out problems. So we have different tools here. If you need it's a little dusty. I apologize for that. I haven't used it for 3 months. So for a calculator, you do need more than just a basic calculator, something that will cover, we actually will need the log function, the exponent function. Those will be necessary this semester beyond just the basic arithmetic calculations. So if you don't have one now, that you're fine, but it's something that we will need to get. So be thinking about that. Sorry, I have my email open, so it'll occasionally make a noise. I'm trying not to look at it. So as I said, here's our textbook. Now, one of the good things about this textbook or this course is that you have, like, some of you have the ebook and others may have the textbook. Oh, sorry, Jarek. No particular calculator. Actually, I have two different ones here. I have a Sharp and I have a TI. If you also need to take a statistics course, then the 36X is nice because it works well for basically all the courses that we offer at Midland College, depending on what your degree plan requires. If you don't need a stats course, I wouldn't worry about it too much. I like this one for like general use because it has the functionality. And the way that it enters numbers is a little bit more clear to me because it just keeps a track of what you're doing up here. So, I'm a nerd, So most people who teach math are, even if they don't let you know it. Textbook and ebook should be exactly the same. The only thing different is you don't get a hardcover that costs an extra $10 or so. Or more. I don't know what the pricing is like, but the ebook is nice because you don't have to worry about selling it back at the end of the semester. Hopefully the savings are up front and you don't have to carry it around anywhere. Of course, we're not going to class anyway, so. ebook weighs a lot less. That's a good advantage. But I have this massive thing. I can kill spiders with it if I need to. So there's pros and cons. All right. Now, I looked at the schedule that we had planned out for this course in what I would call a generic course setup that we already had saved, and it talked about working with fractions on day one. How are you all with fractions? Favorite thing, least favorite thing, somewhere in between. Appreciate the enthusiasm. That is definitely your least favorite, Andrea. That's good. You know, the main thing is that we all may be at a little bit different points right now. So some of the things that we cover, you may be really comfortable with already, which is great, and other things that we cover, you may feel less comfortable with, which is why we're covering them. Um, yeah. So it certainly doesn't hurt to kind of go over some things again that will end up being very useful in this course as we move forward. I'm going to make my camera a little bit smaller as we start to write things down, but yeah. And that's and the whole intent here is to refresh everyone. You probably have a lot of these skills already, even if you don't necessarily like them. But we want to make sure we're all cut up so we're ready to use them when we need to. Yeah, I would definitely say get the ebook because that's what Mrs. Knisley is requiring, and it's perfectly fine for what we're doing here. Mainly, it's if you have a question for me, I can very easily grab the hardcover in case I can get to a page real quickly and answer your question. So, yeah. All right. Can y'all see that okay? I'm at a weird, I think I drew it at an angle. That's throwing me off. Sorry. Cool. Normally with math we would like to write in pencil, but because I'm sending this to you via the stream, I think the pen shows up a little bit better, so I will try very hard not to make a mistake. You can get the ebook. The bookstore has it, but if you don't want to go there in person, I understand. You can also order it online, I believe, through Pearson directly. That would be your online alternative in that case. But yeah, the bookstore would have it would be an access code that you would buy, and then you would enter it into the website from there. Now, when we talk about fractions, there's really there's a lot of topics we could go over. Let's see. I would start off with lowest terms. Probably this is one you're already comfortable with. But when we have a fraction like 4 over 6, then a lot of you probably realize, hey, both of those numbers are even, so we can just divide both of these numbers by 2 and reduce the fraction. So the other way is if we think about 4 as 2 times 2 and 6 is 2 times 3, the 2's can be canceled out, and then we'll just have 2 over 3. So there's multiple ways to think about that, but we always like to deal with our fractions in lowest terms before we do any other operations with them, because the lower the terms are, then the easier they are to work with. Now, 4 over 6 is pretty straightforward. I think most people can recognize right away this is going to be 2/3, and if not, then we at least see that these are both even numbers and we can reduce them by 2's. Where it really gets a little bit more difficult is if we might have a more complicated one. Let's say 48 over what would be a good one? 112. 112 would be good. $91 plus tax. That sounds like a whole lot. That is a whole lot. Now, this book that we have actually works for both 1324 and 1325. I don't know how long the access code is good for, but you will be able to, you'll be using the same book for 2 semesters, at least. Now, the access code, the way they do it, may only be good for 1 semester, but a lot of the time they do it for like 6 or 9 months. So if that's the case, you may be all right if you take the follow-up class in the spring. So for a more difficult fraction such as 48 over 112, we may have to reduce this in stages. Now, we can see, okay, 48 and 112, again, because they both end in even numbers, that means they're both multiples of 2. So 48, that's 24 times 2. 112, and again, feel free to use a calculator here. That's 56 times 2. We can cancel out the 2's, but it still leaves us 24 over 56. Now, that's still not reduced, and so we can repeat that process. That's 12 times 2, and that's 28 times 2. So we get 12 over 28. Now, at this point, if you recognize, or even here, if you recognize that 8 is common to both numbers, or if you recognize here that 4 is common to both numbers, we don't have to keep taking out 2's. We can take out larger numbers, but sometimes we have to do it by bits and pieces just to be able to end up with a progression towards the reduced terms. What do we say? It's 3 times 4 and 7 times 4. So it actually is 3/7. I'm a little off the page, aren't I? Yeah. Okay, so 48 over 112 is actually 3/7. Now, that's fine. I think most people are okay with lowest terms, but you know, if there's a combination we're not sure about, then we can do it in stages and just gradually peel away the elements that they have in common and ultimately arrive at the answer where it's no more numbers in common between the 3 and the 7 in this case. If you have a calculator that has a, and this particular one has a fraction button, and it says A, B over C. And now basically I hit this button anytime I want the line separating the numerator from the denominator. So if I enter in 48 over 112, it'll actually reduce that for me to 3/7. So that's a nice tool to have in some of these calculators. That's both of the calculators I showed you have that feature, but and most calculators do nowadays. Didn't used to be that case. So anyway, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on lowest terms, but it's worth mentioning at least. We always like to work with fractions when they're in their lowest terms. Now, let's see, I can just move that up. Let's go ahead and move on to addition and subtraction of fractions. These are really kind of the same, the same category because the operations necessary are identical. If we want to add 2/3 plus 4/3, we know that we need, when we have addition and subtraction, we need a common denominator. I appreciate it. Thank you, Caesar. My problem is trying to talk and write at the same time, and sometimes brain is ahead of fingers, so yeah. Anyway. So when we add two fractions, we need the same denominator, common denominator. And then we actually just combine what is in the numerator. So in this case, combining 2 and 4 would give us 6/3, and we would then reduce that. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And we can write 2 as 2/1, but more conventionally just as a 2. Now, the issue is when we do not start with a common denominator, we have to get a common denominator. And that's really a larger concern for addition and subtraction. So for instance, we have 2/7 minus 1/8. Now in this case, if we want to subtract them, we need to have a common denominator. So the question is, when we find a common denominator, we want to find a number that contains both of the numbers, in this case 7 and 8, as factors. Now when we say factors, that means that there's a number that 7 multiplies by to equal the common denominator, and there's another number that 8 multiplies by to equal the common denominator. In this case, 7 and 8, we can say 7 times 8. And that's usually the easiest step, is we just multiply the two numbers together. So 7 times 8 is 56, and that's our common denominator. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Well, we know that we have to multiply the 7 by 8, and we have to multiply 8 by 7 in order to make these both 56. So the goal is, okay, we want 56 in the bottom of both numbers. But with fractions, we can't just change the denominator only. When we have the ratio, and the fraction is a ratio, like 2/7 means we have 2 parts out of 7. And so if we scale this up, like we turn the 7 into a 56, Not a great 5, sorry. You can probably say that about all my 5s. In order, excuse me. Sorry about that. In order to take the 7 and make it into a 56, we'll have to multiply it by 8. Now, we want to make sure at the same time whatever number is on the numerator is multiplied by the same value. So in the case of 2 over 7, we'll multiply both numbers by 8, and that gives us our 56 in the bottom, and then 8 times 2 gives us the 16 on top. Right, what we do to the bottom must also be applied to the numerator, to the top, multiplied by the top. So in the case of the second fraction, we already have 1 over 8. So to get that 8 to become 56, we'll need to multiply by 7. And again, multiply the top by 7 also. So 1 times 7 is 7. So we've converted this from 2/7 minus 1/8 into 16 over 56 minus 7 over 56. Now we can go ahead and subtract. Now, because both numbers have 56 in the bottom, we can go ahead and combine that together to a single fraction and just subtract these two numbers on top. Whatever sign is between, we'll keep that sign between them when we combine. So whether it's addition or subtraction, the same thing will be true here. So 16 minus 7, that's 9 over 56. Now, after we complete our addition or subtraction, when we get a result here, we still want to make sure that it's in lowest terms. In this case, can we think of any numbers that are factors of 9 that are also factors of 56? And in this case, no. And we can even verify that on the calculator. So I typed in 9 over 56, press enter or equals, and it gives me a reduced form of 9 over 56. Yeah, it looks like 56 is, and I understand this is a larger number you're not used to working with the factors of. 56 only has a few different factors. I think it's like 2, 7, and 8, and 28, I think. So there's not a lot of numbers that go into 56. 9, we know, contains 3, but 3 doesn't go into 56, evenly at least. Again, we're certainly welcome to try to verify that. If we take 56 and divide it by 3, if 3 is a factor of 56, this should give us a whole number. A little bit of a glare, sorry. And if we do that division, it doesn't give us a whole number at all. It gives us this decimal number. So that tells us that 3 does not go evenly into 56, and so we won't be able to reduce it with the 9. So there's different ways that we can tell that, but we probably don't need to get into them here because it's a little bit beyond what we really need. Okay, let me try to pick some smaller numbers that might be a little bit better. Not too small, but you know. Okay, 4 over 5 plus 2 over 3. Now, if someone wants to put in the chat, what do you think is the common denominator for this pair of fractions? $15, right? So you said 15. The 1, probably you hit enter before you hit the 5, right? Yeah, I see you typed it again. Good. 30, now 30 is an interesting answer because 30 would also work as a common denominator. And that brings up an important point. usually we want what's called the least common denominator, and that's the smallest number that works. Technically 30 would work as well, because we could 5 and 3 both go into 30 evenly, but there is a smaller number, 15, that 5 and 3 both go into. So let's go ahead and use 15 as our common denominator. Okay. Now, question then, what to multiply by 5 to make it equal 15? Three, good. And we'll also make sure to multiply that by the 4. That's why we want to identify that number, because we need to multiply the numerator by the same number, 3 on top and bottom. So 3 times 4 will give us 12. 2/3 we'll have to multiply by 5, yeah. We'll make sure we multiply 2 times 5 on top, so that'll give us a 10. The response time tells me who has a little bit slower connection versus a faster connection, but it's all good, so don't worry about it. So now we have 15 under both. We can add those together, and that gives us 22 over 15. Now, can we reduce that? Are there any numbers that 22 and 15 have in common? It's kind of a tricky question, because we look at that number, we know something has to happen with this, because we notice something is off. Now, it's actually not reducible, but you're probably looking at this and saying, oh, 22 is bigger than 15. We shouldn't have a number on top that's bigger than the number on bottom. Right, and that's what I figured you were addressing, Gabe. We do have a bigger number on top than bottom. It's not reducible, but it's what we would call an improper fraction. Improper fraction, because the numerator is larger than the denominator. So, while it's not reducible, there's no numbers in common between 22 and 15. It is true that this is improper. Not 11 over 3, no, because to get to 3 we have to divide by 5 here, and we can't divide by 5 here. Is that what you're talking about, Gabe? Or Oh, 1 and 1/3. Well, let's find out. Oh yeah, if it was 20, oh, I see the problem. I'm off the screen. That's my bad. Um, Sorry about that. Hopefully y'all can see that better now. I gotta get used to, and you'll see me glance over towards the screen occasionally, just to, one, check if y'all have any comments, and two, make sure I'm still on the screen. Yes, 1 and 7/15. Good. It's a little weird when you type it in text like that, so yeah, you might want to leave a space or open and. Yeah. The question is, what can we do with that? Well, one, we have a great tool here. So if I enter 22 over 15, not only would it reduce it if possible, it also gives me the mixed number. So we have what's called an improper fraction and what's called a mixed number. A mixed number consists of a real number as well as a fraction. And what this reads is 1 and 7/15. But preferably we should be able to do that by hand. I was just demonstrating with the calculator. The calculator is a very nice tool though if you can utilize that. If you think about it, how many times does 15 go into 22? It's really just long division at this point. 15 only goes into 22 one time. And 1 times 15 is 15. And we subtract, we get 7 left over. So we get our answer of 1 with a remainder of 7, which translates to 1 and 7/15. So this is called improper fraction. And this is a mixed number. Okay. Probably didn't think about doing long division when we came in today, but whenever you convert the fractions from improper to mixed, then it does come up. Alright. Now, in both of these problems, when we found a common denominator, we just multiplied the two denominators together. Okay, we had 7 times 8, and then we had 5 times 3. Now, it won't always be quite so simple, unfortunately. So let me come up with another example. Let's say, not 2, sorry. Let's say 1/4 minus 1/8. Now, we want the lowest common denominator, which it contains both 4 and 8 as factors. So basically this is the smallest number that 4 and 8 both divide into evenly. Does anyone already recognize what happens here? There's a lot of common denominators, but we only want the one least common denominator. Eight, yeah. In this case, 8 is the least common denominator. So yeah, we can, in order to get 8 and 8, we don't even have to change the second fraction. We'll just have to multiply the first fraction by 2 to get it to an 8. So times 2 here, and times 2 up here. Yeah, that'll give us 2/8 minus 1/8. And then we just subtract 2 minus 1, which is 1/8. That one's a little more straightforward. Now, because in this case, basically one denominator is already a factor of the other denominator, and so that allows us to really just change one term and leave the other alone. Now, there's a third case where if we have, let's say we have 3/4 plus 1/6. In this case, 4 doesn't go into 6 evenly, so neither one of these numbers is the lowest common denominator. We could multiply 4 times 6 and get 24, but it turns out 24, while it's a common denominator, is not the lowest common denominator. It's actually a smaller number we can find in between. Can anyone think of a smaller number than 24 that 4 and 6 both divide into? 12, yeah. In this case, we'll want to use 12 because even though 4 times 6 is 24, we could use 24, but 12 will actually be a better number because it's smaller and still contains both of these as factors. Now when we say least common denominator, instead of writing it out every time, I'm just going to say LCD. That'll mean least common denominator or lowest common denominator, which probably you're familiar with that already. So in this case it's a little trickier, because at least here we saw that 4 was a factor of 8. Now 4 and 6 both going into 12, this requires a little bit more, a little bit higher level of comfort with the multiplication system, which I know not everyone has necessarily, but at least we're working with small enough numbers that this is fairly manageable, I hope. But yeah, if we ended up using 24, it's not the end of the world. The only difference would be if we used 24 instead of 12, is we'd have to reduce at the end. We still may have to reduce at the end here, it just depends on what it comes out to be. So if we make both of these a 12, so 4 we'll have to multiply by 3 to get 12 on the bottom. We'll have to multiply by 3 on top, that'll give us a 9. 6 we need to multiply by 2 to make it equal 12. And so we'll multiply by 2 on top, so they'll give us a 2. And now we can add those together. And 11 over 12. Okay. Alright, and that's kind of the third scenario. This is generally the one I think that gives students the most difficulty. The first two that we looked at were kind of the easy case, where we just multiply the denominators together. This one, we see that the 4 is a factor of an 8, so we can just use 8 as a common denominator already. But this is kind of this kind of oddball case where it's like, okay, we can multiply these together and get 24, and that will work, but our best option is actually 12. Now, if we had made this 24, we would have ended up with 22 over 24, and then just divided both numbers by 2 to get 11 over 12. It's not a huge difference, but that's kind of what we're looking at here. Now, let's look at multiplication next. Which I forget, I guess this will be part 3. So here we start, and I just want to start off with an example. 2 over 3 times 1 over 2. The main issue in multiplication is how we actually apply the multiplication. This is where I think a lot of students get confused. We really just multiply straight across, like 2 is multiplied by the 1 and 3 is multiplied by the 2. This will come in handy when we're working with polynomials, for instance, or multiplying algebraic expressions. But for now, we're starting with just numbers, which is nice. Now, 2 times 1 will give us a 2 on the top, and 3 times 2 will give us a 6 on the bottom. And from here, we still have to reduce if possible. Like 11 over 12, we know we didn't have to reduce that. But 2 over 6, these both have a 2 in common. What would that reduce to? One-third, yes. It's kind of, I could make it more challenging, but yeah. It's nice to start here, I think. Okay. Now we can make it a little bit more complicated. What if we have 4 over 5 times 3 over 8. First of all, if we just multiply this, what expression do we get? Like what do we get on the top, what will we get on the bottom? Before we reduce. 12 over 40. Good. And so with 12 over 40, at the very least, we see that these are both even numbers, but is there a bigger number than 2 that we could take out of both of these numbers? Divide by 4, yeah. 12 and 40 are both multiples by 4, so we can make 12 3 times 4. 40 is 10 times 4. You cancel those out, so it's just 3 over 10. Now, when you do your reducing, you can, like I've done here, I've basically split them up and then canceled the part that's in common. If you're comfortable just dividing both numbers by the common number, like 12 divided by 4 gives 3, 40 divided by 4 is 10. Whichever way, if you already have a way that you're comfortable with, that's fine. You don't necessarily have to do it exactly like I'm showing you. I like this approach personally because it lines up better with what happens when we throw in algebraic expressions, because it covers the same concept and as far as how we're going to approach that. But I mean, if you're completely comfortable going from 12 over 40 to 3 over 10, I don't want to hold you back either. Okay. Probably the most difficult part in teaching online is it's hard to get, I don't have any faces to respond to. You know, it's hard to read how everyone's responding to this, that kind of thing. I hope everyone's doing okay. I know some of you probably are bored, but you know, we'll hopefully move into more challenging content soon. Not too challenging, but more than this. One of the issues that we face in this kind of class, especially when we introduce the what we call the co-requisite course, where you take the main course plus a support course, is we get a wide variety of students. So I really want to make sure everyone's doing all right in this class and being prepared for the class that it accompanies. So please bear with me is all I ask. Good, thank you. Now, if the multiplication gets a little bit more difficult, we can certainly bring in the calculator. And, you know, I don't expect you to multiply by like a pair of 2-digit numbers in your head. I think most people hopefully are comfortable with like the basic multiplication table. But anything beyond that, don't be upset if you need to bring in a calculator. And you may at first feel a little bit uncomfortable and you want to check everything with the calculator. That's fine. But we want to hopefully get really comfortable with what we're doing and feel confident in our answers that we're giving. Yeah. We'll ease into this easier, yeah. Okay, now division, this is one that I do see a number of students struggle with a little bit more than the others. Let me set up an example. So we have 2/3 divided by 1/2, and so when we have the division symbol and when working with fractions like this, probably the easiest approach is to invert the second fraction and multiply instead. Now, when we say invert, basically means we just flip this fraction over. Now, we want to make sure we do the second one specifically, because if we flip the first one, it's not correct. So we'll change 1 over 2 to 2 over 1, and we'll change that to a multiplication instead of division. And that's really the only thing we really need to do with division, is we can change it to a multiplication problem and work it using the same method that we used previously. So, again, with multiplication, we know we go directly across. 2 times 2 on top, 3 times 1 on bottom. We end up with 4 over 3. 4 over 3, what would that be as a mixed number? Well, that would be the decimal equivalent, but what about a mixed number, like still in a fraction form, but yeah, 1 and 1/3. With a full 3 and then another 1 out of 3. Okay. Did you have a question, Jocelyn? Alright, so we have 7 over 9 divided by 1 over 3. And again, we want to make sure we take the second fraction here, 1/3, and we'll change it to 3 over 1 and multiply instead. So 7 over 9 times 3 over 1. Again, we multiply across, and that gives us you're jumping a little ahead there. Okay, that's fine. 21 over 9. Now, there's several issues with this number. Oh, awesome. Cool. Yes, invert the second fraction every time we divide. We invert the second trying to think of an explanation beyond that's what we do. Basically, the concept here is that division is kind of the opposite of multiplication. Multiplication takes a number and makes it larger, and division takes a number and makes it smaller. So, instead of dividing by 1/3, dividing by 1/3 is equivalent to multiplying by 3 over 1. We can divide fractions, but it's very inconvenient. It's much more convenient to multiply fractions. That's probably the best way to say that. But but yeah, because that they are natural opposites to each other. Cool. But yeah, because they're natural opposites, we're able to switch from one to the other by inverting them. So if we want to take 7/9 and divide it by 1/3, dividing by 1/3 is multiplying by 3 over 1, multiplying by the invert, by the reciprocal, as we call it. The reason we choose the second one to do that is that we're taking the first number, and affecting it by the second one. The first number we don't want to change. We don't want to change the number that we're starting with. We only want to change how we're associating the second number here. But yeah, maybe you'll find a better visual in Google than I'm trying to come up with on the spot. Anyway, we end up with 21 over 9, which has two problems. One, it needs to be reduced because we can see both of these numbers are multiples of 3. The other problem is it's also improper, so we can convert that to a mixed number. So we can divide both of those by 3. That gives us 7 over 3. And 7 over 3 as a mixed number, there's 2 3s that go into 7, and then we still have one more part left over. Okay, now in a lot of math, in college algebra and beyond, a lot of the times we'll just leave it as an improper fraction. Now, in business math, because we do focus a little bit more on applications of math, anytime we're using a math application, whenever we have like a word problem, if we have like a unit of measure associated with the number that we're getting as an answer, a lot of the times it doesn't make any sense to represent it as an improper fraction. For instance, we wouldn't say 3/2 of an hour. Normally we would say an hour and a half. We wouldn't say that it takes 6/5 of an hour to drive from one place to another. We would say it takes an hour and 12 minutes, whatever that is, or an hour and 1/5. So in cases where we have units of measure, we do like to go ahead and convert it to that mixed number, or even a decimal in some cases. But if we're just working with straight numbers and there's no like word problem or application associated with it, a lot of those times we just leave it as an improper fraction. So some cases you may find that you just leave it as 7/3. Other cases maybe you want to go ahead and change it to 2 1/3. So you'll find as you work with different professors, and in different classes is probably the more significant part, you may find one approach more necessary than the other. But we want to prepare you for both, basically. All right. So that's division. I think we've... Well, we could do another problem. That's only one problem. We could do another one there. Oh, no, that is 2. I'm sorry. Well, let's continue on to a very connected topic to fractions is Jocelyn, I think you did switch them that time. I'm sorry. With multiplying, we just go across. Like, here's multiplying, and we just went across 2 times 2, 3 times 1 to get there. When it's division, we actually just switch the second number first, second fraction, and that's 2 over 1, and then we do our multiplication. So division is really just changing it into a multiplication problem. So as long as we know how to do multiplication okay, and we know how to handle division by changing it to multiplication, that should leave us in a good place. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about fractions and decimals. And this is significant to us because as we look at business applications, a lot of the time a decimal answer is more expressive or more easily communicated than a fractional answer. You know, when we say that, trying to think of a good example. We would never say the interest rate is 3/25 of a percent. We always like to express that in a decimal, for instance. So we have to be comfortable converting from one to the other. Now, the good news is that fractions convert very easily to decimals. So if we have 7/3, for instance, and we want to convert that to a decimal, the easiest approach is take the numerator, 7, and then divide by the denominator, 3, and it'll give us the decimal equivalent. Now, one of the big questions that we have here is, okay, how many 3's do we write down? There's 8 of them here, I believe, or 9, 8 or 9, doesn't matter. But the question is, how many do we write down? Well, sometimes your teacher will ask for a certain level of precision, and they'll tell you how many decimal places they want you to go to. The general rule is that it really just depends on the problem itself. And if you've had chemistry, then and maybe some other science classes, you have a concept of significant digits, and we try to have as many significant digits in the answer as were given in the question that led to that answer. But if you just want a nice little rule to go on, 3 or 4 is usually enough, unless whatever we're working with requires a higher level of precision than that. So in most cases, what we're working with here, 3 or 4 will be enough. We may want to go a little bit further when we're working with financial problems or business problems. But it really just depends on the context, what it requires. So, but just starting off, 3 or 4 decimal places is fine, especially these ones that repeat. If you write a 3 down 3 times, it's pretty clear to the reader that this is a repeating decimal, and it's just going to keep going the same way. So we don't need to go too much further into that because it already conveys what's happening here. The more complicated cases is where there's no pattern to the decimal, and we just need 3 or 4 places to convey an approximate value that's occurring. So working with fractions and decimals, the conversion is easy. We just take the top number and divide by the bottom number. So if we have top over bottom. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you could put a line over the 3 there to indicate that it keeps repeating in the same pattern. It's not strictly necessary because it's pretty clear to the reader that's what's happening usually, especially if your audience is your teacher. They'll know what's going on. Um, so we don't always have to put the line to show the repetition, but if we do recognize that there is repetition, then it is a nice courtesy to include that line to show, hey, this number is going to keep going in the same manner. That's what that line means. So a more complicated case would be if we had like 7 over 15, where the pattern of repetition is much larger. That was a bad example, I'm sorry. 7 over 15 you'll see is 0.46, and then 6 is repeating. Now, if we put 13 over 99, the pattern here is actually just 13's being repeated. So in this case, if we wanted to indicate that repetition, we would put the line over both the 1 and the 3, because the 1 and the 3 are being repeated indefinitely beyond that. Some numbers work out very nicely. If we did 3 over 4, for instance, that comes out to exactly 0.75. We wouldn't have to indicate any kind of repetition there. We wouldn't have to worry about approximating the decimal at all. That'd just be our answer. 3/4 is 0.75. That's all there is. Okay. I feel like we're about to the end here, and I just want to give you all an opportunity. If you have any more questions that you would like to ask, go ahead and type them in now. I have no idea about the AccuPlacer, how it impacts this class. What it means is that it probably means you didn't quite score high enough that they believe you needed some kind of remediation, and that's how you end up in this class. I think that's what it means. I don't think it's necessarily a pass-fail thing. It's just kind of gauging where you are and that you might need a little extra help in this case. And that's the point of this course, is to... Ooh. That one kind of hurts, though, missing by one question. For my assignments, I'll probably put them into Canvas, either through the video or through an upload in the files. I know Mrs. Knisley is using MyMathLab extensively, I believe, but that's all embedded in Canvas, and she'll go over that with you more tomorrow. Yeah, you would definitely want to contact the other teacher, Mrs. Knisley, through Canvas or email, and see what you need to do there. I don't know if it's I don't think it's in person, though. I thought it was online, but don't quote me on that. There's no way we would have 25 people in a classroom at this current time. I don't think we have more than 10 in a classroom at the moment. So hers is probably going to be on Teams, if I remember what she said. But either way, if you have some kind of conflict on Tuesday and Thursday, you want to contact Mrs. Knisley. If you have a conflict on Monday and Wednesday, then they'll contact me, basically. But she and I are gonna meet every week to kind of stay on top of where everyone's at, and she'll let me know what y'all are doing, what if there's anything in particular she needs me to do to help y'all get ready, or if there's any particular questions that y'all have that you want me to work on, you can send those to me in advance, and I'll get them ready for class when we have them. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope today was not terribly boring and informative and helpful. But yeah, in this class we'll be pretty flexible as far as what we do. But yeah, I hope we all have a good semester. Yeah, I may end a little bit early sometimes, but yeah, generally 11 to 12:50. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have 4 hours a week. I don't know that we necessarily need 4 hours, but I do want us to make the most of our time that we have. All right, you all have a good day. I appreciate y'all chatting and communicating, because it does help me know a little bit better where everyone's at, and the input is good as far as which direction we need to go with the learning and things like that. So y'all take care, and I will see you again on Wednesday. Have a good day.